Hey there. It is so nice to see so nice to see you. Yeah. It's nice to be seen. Let me try that again. Hi, it is Sunday, June 18th, the day after my parents' anniversary. And we are doing live at 3 p.m. Eastern. And this is Dr. Jennifer Bird. I'm a little tired. I just got it from a nap. And we're talking about working through biblical passages that talk about sex, but the relationship we call marriage, and anything related to physical violence and abuse that involves intimate body parts or genitalia. So, my intention here is to talk about them because people tend to brush them under the carpet or downplay them or find ways to dance around them, something, instead of being honest about what's going on in these passages. And it's not just that that's what's happening, it's that I believe, I think and believe that all of that is a part of why we have a hard time talking honestly about things related to sex and marriage relationship, marriage dynamics today, and why we have a hard time acknowledging and calling out some of the unhealthy things going on. It's because it's going on in some of our sacred texts and we can't talk about it. We're taught to avoid it. Um, so no wonder we have a hard time talking honestly about it today. I think those things are connected personally. And in addition to some other things about all these different texts that have to do with intimate people relationships, intimate people connections here. So I very much believe in calling this out, being honest about it. I'm not trying to critique an ancient people. I'm trying to be honest about the fact that these texts are important, and therefore I want to call out what's problematic in them so that we can talk about it today and we can address it when similar things happen today. So, and maybe have some understanding of why so many people have these unhealthy dynamics or have a hard time talking about unhealthy dynamics when they're going on because their examples that they turn to don't talk about it. They actually promote unhealthy relationships, for instance. So I think there's all kinds of reasons to do this, what I'm doing. And so that's why I've chosen to do this for the month of June. I'm pretty sure I'd like to keep doing it moving forward. I will reduce it to just a few days a week. But I also think I'm not sure that I want to keep doing it for free. So I'd like to put that out there to any of you who are watching. And any of you who appreciate this, that I would like to keep doing it, but I am an independent scholar. So this has been a month of June experiment on my behalf, doing it for free just to see if there's people interested. And yeah, I would like to continue, but I do need some form of payment for that in some way, shape, or form. So I will be more clear about ways you can do that. I can tell you right now, I do have a Patreon account, and actually buying my book, the audiobook, Permission Granted, is a way to pay me because I get the money for that. And I am going to be producing some courses on the side, different sets of courses related to the content that I love to talk about, that people could also purchase. But just wanted to float that out there. Yeah. So something to think about. And I'll get back. I'll be more specific about that later. But if you're interested in checking out my Patreon account, it's Biblical Bird. It's my handle there. So, all right. So back to what we're doing here, which is talking about these passages, and it's all related to it's all related to the content in my next book, actually, Marriage in the Bible, What Do the Texts Say? So let me do that real quick, and let me move back over to this, and then let's get started with talking about Genesis chapter 29 is where we're started. Okay. So Genesis 29, this is a story about, depending on how you look at it, it's a story about Jacob and how he acquires women, or it's a story about how men barter with women's bodies, or it's a story about women as property and the extent that men need to go to purchase them, or it's a story about the awful situation that patriarchy puts women in and the extent to which their ability to produce children makes them feel like full humans or makes them feel like they are doing their part as human beings. There are all kinds of ways we could look at this or things about it we could use to summarize what's going on here. It also includes the use of enslaved peoples for children. So there are two women, Bilhah and Zilpah, in this story, this part of the story, who are essential to creating the 12 sons that become the 12 tribes, eponymous tribes of Israel. So many things, right? So this isn't just about Jacob, right? This is a story that features Jacob. This is a story that centers Jacob, but it is also about all these other factors. And so let's get to it. Genesis chapter 29. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field and 3 flocks of sheep lying there beside it, for out of that well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where do you come from?" And they said, "We are from Haran." He said to them, "Do you know Laban, son of Nahor?" They said, "We do." He said to them, "Is it well with him?" "Yes," they replied. "And here is his daughter, Rachel, coming with the sheep." He said, "Look, it is still broad daylight. It is not time for the animals to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go pasture them." But they said, "We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep." Was he just trying to get a moment alone with her? That's kind of fun, isn't it? Anyway, while he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. Now, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his mother's brother Laban, so his cousin, right? And the sheep of his mother's brother Laban, Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of his mother's brother's Laban. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. Okay, I don't know about you all, but I did not used to be bothered by any of these kinds of stories. They really didn't bother me. I didn't think about them. I was too young, whatever. But when I look at it now, I'm just pretty startled by his assurance, his certainty in himself. What's the word I'm looking for on this? He just goes up and kisses her. He just goes up and kisses her, like in front of everybody, right? All these men are gathered with their flocks, and Rachel is the one who takes care of their sheep. There isn't a brother in the family, right? And he's they've told him who she is. He sees her. Jacob like helps water her sheep, and then he goes over and kisses her, like, here's what I'm doing. And Jacob told her who he was, and she tells her father, like, no, like there's no problem here, no problem going on here. I'm actually pretty uncomfortable by this part of the story. I don't know about you all. Have you ever had someone treat you in a way that you didn't feel the same back? Have you ever had a man, I don't know, if you're female identifying, have you ever had a man do something like this to you and you weren't feeling it back? It just creeps me out. His entitlement, that's the word. Okay, I'll just keep moving. But that is what I think of when I see this part of the passage is the entitlement of men. That's what I see. Okay. And it really makes me angry on her behalf, just to be honest. Okay, so when Laban heard the news about his sister's son, Jacob, so when he heard about his nephew, okay, he ran to meet him He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone. You are my bone and my flesh." I thought I was misreading that. And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing?" I mean, I hope nobody would serve him for nothing, but anyway. "Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now, Laban had two daughters. The name of the elder daughter was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were lovely, and Rachel was graceful and beautiful. I do enjoy the fact that they say that Leah's eyes were lovely. The word that qualifying her eyes, we're not really sure what the Hebrew word there means. I haven't looked into it for myself, so I don't know if that's true or not, but I believe it probably is. We're not sure. Is this one of those nice ways of saying, "Oh, she's got a lovely personality"? Probably. Sadly, unfortunately, whatever. But Rachel was graceful and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel. Okay, so right now, okay, he has known her, max 4 hours and he loves her. Based upon what does he love her, right? She's she is graceful and beautiful, right? Okay. I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm saying that's a very shallow love. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." And Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her, because of the lust he felt for her, because of how much he desired her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my woman, that I may go into her, for my time is completed." I love that. Yeah, this is sweet love. This is sweet, gentle, tender love we're talking about here. Give me my woman. I've worked for 7 years, dreamt about her, whacked off to her at night, and it's time now. It's time for me to get to go into her. Yeah, I'm feeling loved if I'm Rachel. So, I mean, he's just got such a way with words, doesn't he? That sweet, sweet Joseph. Just, you know. Okay, sorry. "Give me my woman, that I may go into her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. I mean, it's so bluntly described, right? Men go into women. And this is the way they claim them. Look at this. He went into her, and morning came, and he realized he'd had sex with Leah. Now, of course, really, he didn't notice. There was nothing that gave it away that this was not Rachel. I mean, there's some really fun remakes of this that play on that, right? That play with the idea that actually Leah and 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 Jacob had kind of fallen in love or something over the 7 years, and he had to put up a pretense or whatever. There's all kinds of fun things you could do with this, right? But I'm just not buying it that he didn't notice until morning. Oh, and I skipped over the part, it's in parentheses in my version. Laban gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her maid. So the enslaved woman, Zilpah, went along with Leah. Okay. Okay, let's keep moving. And when morning came, it was Leah, and Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you've done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me? I worked 7 years for that woman. You're supposed to give me Rachel, not this woman." And Laban said, this is just so fun. Laban said, "This is not done in our country, giving the younger before the firstborn." Giving, right? Giving. Men take and men On the other side, give and take the bodies of women. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years, right? So when I was growing up, all I thought about or heard was the part about he served 14 years total for these two women. I did not hear this really fascinating line that Laban was being really tricky and sneaky, and that they're talking about women like property, and neither one of them is flinching at that. And he just says, give this first woman her 1 week with you, thus honeymoons, right? Your week alone. Give her a week with you, and then we'll give you the other one. And then you can work for another 7 years for her. Okay. Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as a woman. Laban gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her maid. So this enslaved woman is now their enslaved woman. So Jacob went into Rachel also. And he loved Rachel more than Leah. I guess they had better sex. I think that's what that means. I don't know. What do you think it means? Whoop. I get carried away and forget to remove the banner. Sorry about that. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved her more than Leah. He served Laban for another 7 years. Did you see what just took place in a matter of like 10 verses? Give me my woman. I've worked 7 years for her. It's time for me to get to go into her. Give her to me. He does, except it's the wrong daughter. They have a little fight about it. They promise to give him, the other woman by the end of the week. So he goes from 0 to 4 women that he has access to for sex. Okay. I mean, even if we leave Bilhah and Zilpah out of it, he goes from having 0 women to having access to 2 women in 1 week, right? Okay. When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. There are so many things to talk about here. When God saw that so-and-so is not well loved, he allows them to have children. Is that really how God loves people? Making sure they get to do this role of being a woman in this world and procreating? That's your gift? Now, don't get me wrong, right? I know, not from personal experience, but I know that children are really lovely and important and obviously keep us going, populated, perpetuating the species and all that good stuff. Wow. God saw that Leah was unloved, so he allowed her to procreate. But Rachel was barren. I also want to talk about how so much of the narrative talks about women's uteruses like God is flipping a switch, right? God allows women to procreate. God keeps people from procreating, apparently, according to the storylines, right? All the people talk about it that way, like it's all in God's hand, which is yet another reason why people believe that it is. Every single fetus, right? Every single egg that's fertilized and becomes a fetus and carries on, right? It's every single one is specifically what God intended. That is a part of the thinking today. And here we are seeing it play out in their lives or in this narrative. And it's just normal for them to talk about it that way. So when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, someone made a reference to, oh, yes. Yeah, sorry. I saw someone say happy Father's Day, and I'm like, oh, interesting. We're talking about this on Father's Day. But anyway, yeah. When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Reuben. Okay, we're starting in verse 31. I'd like you to pay attention to how fast we get all these children into the world. Verse 31 of chapter 29. Leah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Reuben, which can be translated see a son. For she said, because the Lord has looked on my affliction, surely now my husband will love me. My affliction of being unloved, my affliction of being considered not lovely to look at in this by our culture standards, maybe the affliction of having to be considered so unattractive and unappealing that someone would go for my younger sister and say, like, I don't know what her affliction is, because her affliction can't simply be that that just Jacob didn't love her, because, you know, maybe it is. I don't know. But the Lord has seen, is what she's saying. The Lord has seen her. So she's naming her child after that. Think about that, right? The story that the women are telling of their lives through their children. She conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard, right? So there's a connection here to Shema. I'm surprised by that one when I see what his name is, but I didn't realize those were related. Because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. And she named him Simeon, or I guess it should be Shimeon, because Shema is the verb to hear. Again, she conceived and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will be joined to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. And the verb there is hoda. And joined? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong verb. Yeah, lava, right. Joined, lava. He'll be joined to me. Therefore, he was named Levi. Lava, Levi. She conceived again and bore a son and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore, she named him Judah. Then she ceased bearing. That's 4 sons in a matter of 5 verses. You know, the time that it takes to bring 4 children into the world, a man's story would take several pages, right? But Rachel and Leah, who are busy trying to procreate, only get a few verses. Okay, thank you very much. Are you tracking with my point there? You know, okay. So moving into chapter 30. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. And she said to Jacob, give me children or I shall die. And Jacob became very angry with Rachel and said, am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? I have to chuckle every time. I'm sorry. It's terrible. This is a very intense moment. And all I can think of is the Fruit of the Loom underwear commercials. Okay. Sorry. Am I in the place of God? Right? Even he is confirming that he believes that God opens a womb and closes it, and plants a child in there and doesn't, right? Allows it to happen and doesn't. The place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb. No wonder so many billions of people have thought about it that way, that God is allowing and preventing. God, why won't you let me conceive? It's just not, it's really, really a tragic way to think about it all. Okay, then she said, here is my maid Bilhah. Go into her so that she may bear upon my knees, and that I too may have children through her. So same thing we saw with Sarah and Hagar, right? I'm not able to give you children, so I'm going to give you a woman you can have sex with, produce children with her, and then they can belong to me. They can be from me. And there's a whole lot to be said. There's some scholarship out there on this matter of, when do children of enslaved peoples get to count as real children, and when do they not? When do they get to be disowned or ignored, pretend like they didn't exist, right? Or get, not full family status, like we saw Abraham doing with his 3rd family of children, like 5 or 6 children, and he just kind of treated as secondary status. So there's a lot to be said. I'm not trying to sort all of that out. I am trying to highlight for you what the narrative is telling us about the way they thought about it. And so in this case, it's what they want. So they're going to welcome those children. Okay? It's really that simple on a certain level. Okay? All right. So here's my maid Bilhah. Go into her that she may bear children on my knees. Okay. So she gave him her maid Bilhah as a woman. My translation says as a wife, and that throws people every time. See, she is a wife. No, actually, this is telling us something really juicy about their concept of marriage, which is a woman is for procreation. You claim her by going into her. If she is as a wife, if you want to call it that, then what you're telling us is wives are for sex. It's just awful. I'm too tired for this today. Ugh, goodness. It's just too much. She gave him her maid, her enslaved person Bilhah, as a woman, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, God has judged me and has also heard my voice and given me a son through Bilhah. Therefore, she named him Dan, from the verb to judge. Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. Really? I mean, it's a really interesting comment. I've wrestled with my sister over this, over everything. I'm sure they had a contentious childhood together, right? I'm sure that there was a lack of love there. Whatever, right? They've whatever fought their whole lives. I don't know. I've wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. Really? Because you've just used another woman's body to produce a child. That's all you've done. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm all about siding with the women, trust me. But I'm also like, let's call the narrative out for what it's saying, because I don't know. I don't know if she actually would have said that. Do you get my point there? Okay. So when Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Mine says as a wife. I think it should say as a woman. Sorry, as a woman. They say this in multiple places in the Hebrew Bible. Sarah was given to the Pharaoh in Egypt as a wife. That's how they translate it, as a wife. The two enslaved peoples here are given as a wife. Hagar, I think it says as a woman, as a Isha, and is translated as a wife. So no, these are women and they're being given to men for sex. That's all it is. So as a wife, sure, women or wives are for having sex. Okay, we could go there if you want. That's biblical marriage. It's just about the sex, people. I mean, that is what the Bible tells us, right? Biblically speaking, marriage is about getting to have sex with anyone. Okay, stop. Keep whatever. Maybe I shouldn't pause. That's the whole point of this whole series, is to talk about that. Marriage in the Bible. What do the texts say? Right? That's the title of the book coming out. But what does the Bible tell us about marriage? Really? What does it really say? Right? And the translation committee makes it even more clear, in a sense, that that's what they say. That they're anyway. These women are being taken as wives, which is really just to say so the men can have sex with them. That's it. That's all it's telling us. So then Leah's maid, enslaved person, Zilpah, bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, good fortune. So she named him Gad, from the name for the word for fortune. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, happy am I, for the women shall call me happy. So she named him Asher, after the word for happy, or happiness. So that is a total of 18 verses, just so we're clear. Okay. All of those sons from Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field. I saw someone refer to mandrakes in the comments here, and brought them to his mother, Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But Leah said to her, is it a small matter that you have taken away my man? It says husband in my English, but should just say my man. Would you take away my son's mandrakes also? I mean, they're not doing real well on the shade, are they? But anyway, Rachel said, then he may lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes. Rachel is passing up her time, her night with Jacob, I guess, so that she can have some mandrakes. Hi. I know, honey. Come here. I'm live. Come here. Let's go say hi. Come here. Okay. My cat is crying in the background. I promise you she's okay. She's just gonna sound like she isn't here for a second. So Jacob, lay with her that night, and God heeded Leah. Sorry, she's just gonna talk, so we're gonna bring her into the picture. So he lay with her that night, and God heeded Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, God has given me my hire because I gave my maid to my husband. Okay. We got to keep the cat happy. You know what I'm saying? Got to keep the cat happy. Okay. She's going to settle down in just a second, and then I'm going to keep reading. Yes. Is that better? Is that better? Hi. Hi there. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, her name is Minerva. Okay. Sorry about that. Let me back up briefly. Okay. Okay, yeah. Would you take away my son's mandrakes also? You took away my man. And Rachel said, then he may lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, you must come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. As you do, right? So he lay with her that night, and God heeded Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, God has given me my hire because I gave my maid to my husband. So she named him Issachar. That is a really interesting line. He's given me my hire. So because I gave my maid to my husband? I don't even understand the reasoning there. So she named him Issachar, or Issachar, whichever way you want to pronounce that. And Leah conceived again, and she bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, God has endowed me with a good dowry. Now my husband will honor me because I have borne him 6 sons. Or at least she hopes he will because she's borne him 6 sons, right? So she named him Zebulun. Afterwards, she bore a daughter and named her Dinah. I love the way that's like, it is an afterthought. The birth of the daughter is a total afterthought. We're not making a big deal. We're not telling you why we're naming her that. She's just, whoops. And then there's a daughter. Okay, yeah. And then moving on to all the sons. I have to make a big deal of it, even though you've noticed it before. I have to, because that's the whole point of this, is to point out how ridiculous it is, the way men are centered and the way women and their bodies are treated. It's all a part of biblical marriage, what the Bible teaches people to think about relationships called marriage, what the Bible teaches us to think about sex. Okay, so we'll keep going. Okay, then God remembered Rachel, and God heeded her and opened her womb. I have so many thoughts about that. It just, God remembered her, so he made her able to have children. That's the thing. You've been noticed. Your husband has been praying for you, whatever is happening in the various stories in the Bible. And so God remembers that these people of his apparently are flailing around for various reasons. And then God swoops in and takes care of them. I mean, it's really interesting the way the narrative carries on like that. But God remembered Rachel, and God heeded her and opened her womb. Open for business. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. Can you imagine? I mean, maybe some of you can, right? Maybe some of you can imagine feeling that way, that only in bearing a child, or more specifically a son, are you really seen as truly a woman or a worthy woman or something like that, that bringing a child into the world is what makes you legitimate. I really cannot identify with that. And it just on so many levels is just appalling to me that the connection is so strongly made for us in these stories between women and their acceptance culturally and familially only in bringing forth children. I mean, it makes me really, really angry. She named her son Joseph, saying, "May the Lord add to me another son." Yosef, from the verb to add, or he adds. So I'm just wondering if I need to read some of them. He sure had sex with a lot of with a lot for not like, oh my gosh, that is such a great comment. He sure had sex with Leah a lot for not liking her. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Um, okay. So we at this point have children from we have sons and one daughter from 4 women, right? He is married in air quotes to 2 of them, Rachel and Leah, and then the other 2 women live in his house and are their servants, their slaves, and he has sex with them. They produce children, okay? And all the children count. When Rachel had born Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, his father-in-law, as we would say, "Send me away that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my women," my translation says wives, "my women and my children for whom I have served you, and let me go. For you know very well the service I have given you." But Laban said to him, if you will allow me to say so, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Name your wages, and I will give it. I wonder if Jacob was leery of this, right? Like, he's already double crossed me once. Is he going to do it again? Jacob said to him, "You yourself know how I have served you and how your cattle have fared with me, for you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly. And the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. But now when shall I provide for my own household also?" He said, "What shall I give you?" Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you will do this for me, I will again feed your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep and every black lamb, and the spot and the spotted and speckle among the goats, and such shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later when you come to look into my wages with you." Okay, I must be off my rocker today. So my honesty will answer for me later. We all know he's doing something sketchy, right? I mean, what? And we all know the story, or most of us have read the story at one point or heard it and know that he's doing something sketchy in a minute to make sure that he makes out like a bandit, right? I'm just not liking Jacob. You know what I'm saying? I'm having a hard time liking Jacob. Let me read that again because maybe I read it with the wrong tone. So my honesty will answer for me later when you come to look into my wages with you. Something about this isn't right. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted stolen. Right. Laban said, "Good, let it be as you've said." But that day Laban removed the male goats that were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in charge of his sons. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob was pasturing the rest of Laban's flock. Okay, we're going to get into more ridiculousness between Jacob and Laban. A couple things I just want to throw out there to you. Why was everybody so insistent that Jacob go back to family? Didn't Rebecca know that her brother Laban was a bit sketchy? Didn't she know that he was liable to like not treat things well when we go back to? I mean, there's so many pieces to this. I don't like it. I just don't like it. We've got people being dishonest and claiming to be honest. We've got people making deal. I don't know. It makes me sad for Jacob because Laban is not a straight shooter. But Jacob has also been wily his whole life. Maybe Laban had actually heard about Jacob and how he'd been his whole life, and so he wasn't going to just let Jacob get away with stuff. I don't know, but we do have the setup for some nastiness between these two in the coming chapters. Okay. You mean this story is historical, or did I misunderstand? It's a fable. It's not historical. The Bible is fiction. This is true. Yes. Or are you talking to someone else? I think you're talking to someone else. But let me just be clear that from my perspective, the Bible is not historical. Even when we get to the Newer Testament, we have to be very, very careful about the historicity that someone might be claiming going on in it. But I mean, I think that we can prove that there was Paul. I think Paul is historical. Beyond that, it gets a little sketchy. So no, I'm assuming that was from a conversation that you all are having in the chat. So chapter 29. So let me back up for a second. So starting in verse 31, so 31 to 35 of chapter 29, and then verses 1 through 29. Nope, verses 1 through 24. The remainder of the children. So we have 30 verses in total for the production of the bringing into the world, like 10 or 11 sons, because there's one more to come, right? And one daughter. That all of that work, all of that life work, all of that gestation, bringing into the world children, all took place in a matter of 30 some verses. And yet you don't have the whole family storyline without them, right? You don't have the people of Israel without those children and the women who were fighting between each other. They literally felt like they were fighting with each other to claim a place in the family or a place of prominence in the eyes of the man they all belonged to, or whatever, right? And they're calling it love when they get to have a child, right? And all kinds of stuff. And they are fulfilled as humans when they bring in children into the world, or they're not because they're not feeling loved and she keeps producing more children to fill the space of love. Like all kinds of awful stuff going on in this story in relationship to the relationships we refer to as marriage. And we're being told front and center that enslaved peoples were used for sex. Their bodies were used. They were used. They're not typically talked about as the matriarchs of Israel, Bilhah and Zilpah, right? They're not. But Rachel and Leah are, because they're the legit wives. I don't know. These other women are human to me and putting up with a whole lot of crap in addition to having to sleep with Jacob. Whether or not they want to. I mean, we could say that about all four of the women, really, couldn't we? We don't know. We don't know how any of the four women feel about Jacob. That's the thing, folks. Biblical marriage is not mutually entered into. It is not in any place in the Bible, whether the Newer Testament or the Hebrew Bible. Marriage is not mutually entered into. It is certainly not built on love. And though we've seen that Jacob loved Rachel, that was after a couple hours. So that's a very shallow love. So he lusted after her. He desired her sexually. But we don't have any sort of sense of mutual love like we talk about today. I do believe that there is something about being committed to people that is a form of love, even if you have no choice in it, like you're forced into this marriage, but there's a choice to be kind and supportive or whatever. I get that. That's complicated. But when we talk about it today, two people choose to get married. That is not what's happening, biblically speaking. It's not. And they are not equals once they are in that marriage. That is not biblical. It just isn't. We don't see that anywhere except for one brief moment in 1 Corinthians 7 in terms of the whole Christian Bible. So, yeah, biblical marriage, right? Yeah, that's what we've got. So I'm going to look at the comments and see if there's anything we need to engage here in the these Bible men were sluts. I mean, Jacob is really getting around, and the thing is, it's in his own household, Okay. I don't see any comments or questions that we need to. I think that was from their exchange. So many dishonest tricksters are blessed by the Lord. Yeah, right. Thank you. Yeah, it's just there's a lot of dishonesty in all of these stories, and it makes me cranky that we keep reading them without talking about the dishonesty, and just I get that that people are flawed, nobody's perfect, and that we can still achieve great things in spite of our imperfections or our, our quirks or whatever. I just feel like the church has been essentially defending the choice, like the presence of so many people in these stories instead of talking honestly about them. I can't speak to what happens in synagogues and temples in terms of Jewish settings and how they handle these characters. Um, but yeah, I just feel like we could do a lot better for role models. Or perhaps if we were more honest about the flaws in these people, then people today would be more free to not feel like they have to put up a perfect persona or externally to the world show only perfection. I don't know. Anyway, okay. Sounds like the Bible was written by macho Latinos. I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that, Pablo. Yep. Okay. Thanks for showing up if you were able to be here or chose to be here in person. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this later, I had a little bit of a slow start here. Today I was taking a nap and had a hard time waking up, but I hope there was something useful for you in this conversation. Trying to be honest about what's being presented in these texts, trying to be honest about what it's presenting us about, what it's saying about sex, what it's saying about the relationship we call marriage, that is for us a very, very startlingly different relationship for most people today than what's being depicted here. Yet people claim that they want to live a biblical marriage. It's really interesting. So anyway, that's one of the things I'm up to, is talking about marriage in the Bible. My book coming out this fall is called Marriage in the Bible: What Do the Texts Say? And you can, let me just briefly put that up there. You can pre-order it through Amazon or the website, the publisher website. It is coming out in hardback first. So it's a little more expensive for the first printing, and then they'll put it in paperback once we get through the first printing. So sorry about that, but it is what it is. This is the world of publishing today. We roll with these things when we, so I'm glad to be publishing with Roman and Littlefield. And this is just, well, actually, the reason it's coming out in hardback is so that this book can be on public libraries and academic library shelves. That's really the reason. So it's, in a strange way, it's a very strong endorsement for the book itself and how important it is and what a wide range of people might actually appreciate and enjoy it and get something from it. So I know that not everybody can afford a hardback. So for those of us who can, we'll take care of that until we can get it into paperback. So thanks again. I will be here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. See you soon.